there, Megan Jansen here with Employee Wellness Solutions Network, and we're still on a mission talking to several professionals, human resources, employee benefits, people in the industry of helping others, and very excited to have today on the road of all places, Rivers Corbett. Rivers is a serial entrepreneur. He's host of the Startup Canada podcast. You're an entrepreneur, you're a resident in the province of New Brunswick, and let me tell you, taking a couple of minutes out of your busy day for me, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great, Megan. And I'm a resident, but I'm also entrepreneur in residence for the province of New Brunswick. So a little bit of combo there, but I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having you, Garth, invite me to be part of your journey.
Well, we did so because you're a pretty passionate person, and you're pretty passionate about a very important topic. Let's talk about mental health and specifically how it affects you and your story. And let's maybe also talk about how it can translate into some of the work that you've seen with entrepreneurs.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to start my story with a lesson, and it has to do with a regular question that I ask young entrepreneurs in particular. I said, if you had one thing that you had to make sure you're the number one thing for you to be successful in your business. Richard Branson asked this question of his audience, what would it be? And usually get cash flow, branding, marketing, sales, or so on. And the answer 100% of the time should be your health. And what's interesting is most entrepreneurs, most people don't give that answer. And I am a person that has been on the proverbial in bed, on my back, out of commission for 3 months on my journey as an entrepreneur, suffering from depression. And I still remember the day. I remember the lead up now. I remember all the signs were there, but I didn't know what I was experiencing. And I sat at the doctor's office and for a physical, and he said, "How are you doing?" And I started to cry right then and there. And this doctor wasn't my usual doctor. This is an intern. So I started to cry, I panicked, I had anxiousness, and I started my downward turn, my fall, my fumble, if you want to call it, my spiral. And I went on a journey of discovery, but also a recovery over 3 months that really impact me in so many different ways, Megan. One of them is I consider it the best, one of the best gifts that I've ever gone through, because I now know the symptoms of depression and I know how to ultimately accept it as part of my life. It's just a formula of my own health success, but also, how it impacted other things in my life, such as my family, such as my business, such as my coworkers, and really heightened that level of necessity is that I've got to make sure that I am protecting that number one thing in my life, which is my health, because I can't give to anything, including my business, if I'm not looking after that. So depression's my game. I'm passionate about the cause. About 70% of entrepreneurs suffer with some level of some level of depression. And us guys, we're so freaking cocky about the whole thing. We say, "Oh no, we got this, we can handle this," and we're just so stupid with it. We should just understand that if we got diabetes, we'll get it fixed. If we got depression, we should get it fixed. So I could ramble on without you saying anything for the next 10 minutes, but I'm sure you got a question or two associated with this journey.
You know what? Thank you for sharing that. I think part of the issue is this word called stigma, and you hit it right on the head. We're afraid to talk about it. And you had shared with me that before we hit record that females versus males in speaking out, that it's easier for us ladies to talk about it versus the males. And it is an important message to share. What sort of awareness do we have to keep sharing around the area of depression in our workplaces? And that's, again, a very loaded question, but I feel that there needs to be continued education and awareness about this to allow people like yourself to feel comfortable in speaking out. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you think it's a very complex issue, but actually it's very simple. It's complex to execute, but it's a simple solution, and we just need to be able to tell our story. And I know when I talk about depression in front of audiences, and I'm very open about my journey, you can believe the amount of men in particular that come up to me afterwards and say, "Thank you for sharing that. I connect with that." And I'm ready to now take it to the next level because you made it okay based on who you are. I mean, look, you talk about passion. You talk Rivers Corbett having depression, for God's sakes. That doesn't make any sense. But depression is not a mental issue. All it is a chemical issue. And as soon as we start to recognize that and tell our story about that, and tell our story about how we recovered and how we're better for it because we recovered, then I think that's when more and more people will reach out. So it's in creating an environment where you can tell your story. And I did that recently within my own organization, within the government. And, the CEO was there. A lot of my colleagues were there. And there's about 5 guys that came up after and said, "Thanks for telling this story. I'm now going to take it to my own level of responsibility." So it's getting people to say it's okay and them taking responsibility for fixing it.
You're such a big personality and so passionate about this. I think it's more and more people seeing you speak about this. I mean, talk about really sharing this on social media and hopefully getting others to listen and see and learn from your message. It's so critical. How are you doing today with your depression?
Well, it's a great question, Megan. And here's how I embrace it. Again, if someone has diabetes, they have a formula so that they can maintain. They know they have diabetes, and they just got to put a formula together so it becomes part of their life. Depression is just part of my life. So how I handle it, how I embrace it, how I bring my formula for keeping it subdued in my life, and they call it what they call depression, the big dog on your back. So how I always turn into a little puppy, I just have a formula that's mine, and I am honest to it, and I'm committed to it. And yes, it includes medicine. Yes, it includes education. Yes, it includes spirituality. Yes, it includes exercise. And sometimes in the winter, I got to do more of it. In the summer, I got to do less of it. But I know the formula and I've learned it. So when you say, "How are you doing today?" I'm doing really, really, really great. I appreciate the question. Depression is a part of my life, but it is not my life now. And do I have some bad days? Of course I have some bad days. We all have bad days with the things we may be suffering through. But I've got this thing under control. And here's the other thing, and this is where I really want to encourage your audience to understand, is once you go through the journey of coming out to the other side, from the dark side to the light, all you do is figure out your formula that's key to you. And once you figure it out, then life is great because you've got the formula figured out. And so that's the answer is I'm doing great. It's just a part of my life. It's not my life.
You've learned how to cope. You've learned what works for you. And that's a great message for anybody to really take.
Yeah.
In terms of business leaders and people listening today, people recognizing they're just not feeling great, what would be one of the first few things that individual should do?
Okay, great question. So the first thing you want to do, and this is prevalent amongst people who are suffering from depression, is lack of sleep. So the first thing you want to do is get your sleep. Make it a regime. Get in at 10 o'clock into bed and get up early in the morning so that it becomes a regular part of your regime. That's the first thing, in my opinion. But even more so important is get to your doctor. So many people, particularly again, the freaking guys, I don't want to take medicine. I don't want to take medicine. But they buy into eating granola for breakfast. They buy into eating apples to be healthy. So what's wrong with medicine that can help you be well also? I consider my pill, I take Effexor, and I consider it my happy pill. It's all part of the formula. If I don't take it, then I'm gonna fall. So get to see a doctor and get some sleep. That's the first two things. The third thing is You got to focus in on you, and you got to understand that as you're going through your recovery, you can't make major decisions if you're having major depressive issues. You've got to wrap your team around you, just like my buddy Tom Brady does. He wraps a team around him to be successful. You got to do the same thing. You can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. I'm going to repeat, you can't do it alone in order to go on this journey. So start with your doctor and get sleep, and that'll start you on the journey.
Great, well said. Again, thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts as we tie up our chat today?
Yeah, I really do. Related to, I'm a passionate fan of entrepreneurs. I'm a believer that entrepreneurs are going to save the world. We give great admiration and rightfully so to our armed forces, but without the armed forces of entrepreneurs in our society, we really can't have all the great things we have, including entrepreneurs like you and Garth. And so, I want you to know, as an entrepreneur, you have an increased potential that you're going to suffer some level of mental illness along your journey. It's just prevalent amongst entrepreneurs. So know that. And guys like me experience it, world-class athletes experience it, and your neighbor could be possibly experiencing it. You're not alone in that journey. But understand, in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, if you're in bed because you can't operate mentally, in this case, then you're not going to have a business. Your business needs you healthy, and it needs you focused. So do not ignore the signs. Get in and talk to a doctor and get it and start that journey of discovery.
Well said. From one Maritimer to another, thank you so much, Rivers, for participating today and sharing your story. It's an important one. Thanks again.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate the opportunity. Honored to be here.